Just like when you feel like everything is going right with your vehicle, then to hear what? Your head gasket is blown. How did that happen? Let's start over. You'll realize that there is no happily ever after. That's a lie. So let's talk head gasket. What exactly the head gasket do? So your engine is divided basically into two parts. There's the cylinder block, which comprises of your piston and your cylinder. And then there's the cylinder head, which comprises of like the valves, the spark plugs, and the camshaft. And then the head gasket is cushioned right in between the two parts. So you understand where it is. What does it do? The head gasket is designed to seal because the cylinder is always firing up pressure. And in order to prevent the oil and the coolant from leaking inside or even outside. Now it's time to talk to a mechanic because we are getting technical. And this car could sometimes be a headache. The engine, there's always a problem. It's like when Betsy fix, something else needs to fix. And when you fix that, something else again needs to fix. Sometimes you feel to pull all the hair off your head and all the money out of the bank. And this is where the headache starts. So you're asking me, what are the signs to know that your head gasket is blown or it is going? Don't ask me, it's time to ask the mechanic. From a layman's perspective, we know about smoke, white smoke coming from your engine. One sign. Then you know to check your temperature gauge to see if your car is overheating. Another sign.
In the case of this vehicle, right, it have the reservoir. Some vehicles have the radiator cap.
Correct.
In this case, right, while the engine was running, compression was
Building.
coming through here. It was bubbles that was coming through.
Okay, this is the question I want to ask you. Now you could look for bubbles in the radiator and bubbles in the coolant.
Right.
However, if you are not checking your coolant regularly, you wouldn't see no bubbles.
Right. That is a test that mechanics do. Right? So let us say you have an overheating problem, right? And most of the times, the average driver, the average vehicle owner, right, they may not know. So they may be driving. It have some vehicles that the air conditioner stop blowing cold.
One of the symptoms.
One of the symptoms. Chances are it may not be an air conditioner, it could be overheating.
What about when you're driving? Or you do a little test in the morning time you wake up, you do a little test.
Right.
And you realize the coolant level low, but there are no leaks.
Right.
You can't see any leak. So you're going now refilling, like myself, refilling some coolant and looking for a leak, not seeing any leak, but your head gasket like it gone.
Yeah. Chances are, yes, your head gasket gone. Lower coolant level dropping, that is another indicator that your head gasket blew. As I rightfully said just now, right, it could be like a good marriage that you thought, hey, it was going good, and then all of a sudden...
You get on. Oh no, the head gasket. The head gasket was blown. All right.
We already went to the machine shop. They pressure test it, which is a rule of thumb when they're doing this kind of job. And also, they realized that it was warped. They had to shave the head, right? So picture a plank of wood that just twists and it becomes uneven. So therefore, that is what happened to the cylinder head here, right? So just a brief crash class here, right? Right, so this is your cylinder head. As you can see, it has been shaved by the machine at the machine shop. These are your intake and exhaust valves, right? You have 4 valves in each cylinder, right? These here are your plugs, spark plugs. Everybody know what is a spark plug, I guess. Know the term, I should say. So this is where your spark plug goes. This is where your spark plug enters into the engine, into the cylinder head, I mean, so excuse me, right? And while it's in there, right? While it's in there, this is what causes the spark and the explosion in your engine. This is what ignites the air fuel mixture within the cylinder that causes the explosion, that causes the momentum on the engine. Some of the components, you have the camshaft, left and right camshaft, and you also have the valve lifters and the clamps for the camshaft, right? So basic components of a cylinder head. You know what? I think it's best I get back out to work, right? Time for me to start working.
Another important fact when buying a used vehicle is the mileage. And understanding how to do that conversion is also important. Which one is more and which one is less? Always remember, kilometers is kind of more. So 1 mile is equal to 1.6 estimated kilometers. And 1 kilometer is estimated 0.62137 miles. So when you're buying a car, you may look at the dashboard to check the mileage and then say, oh, the mileage is pretty low. Is it pretty low because it is represented miles? And that may be a very difficult task for you to do in your head. So I'll give you a quick hack to make a transition from miles to kilometers. Remember, 5 miles equals 8 kilometers. Or I tell some people, use the hack of just adding 60%. So if it is 50 miles and you want to make a conversion to kilometers, what are we going to do? A quick hack, we are adding 60%. So it's easier to add 50% and then add 10%. So 50% of 50 will be 25. So we add the 25 and then we get the 10. 10% of 50 will be 5. So in essence, we are adding 30. So 30 added to 50, we'll get 80 kilometers. So 50 miles will be equal to 80 kilometers. Bring out your calculator, make a check. So you're going to buy another used car, check and see if it is in miles. And miles will always say less. And do the conversion from miles to kilometers. Buying a used car, it is important to also know the history, which is very important in terms of servicing. Before we go to services, let's go to ownership. Ensure that that is the entitled owner that can sell you the car. And then we deal with servicing. Now, you may get a gentleman's agreement, but it's always better to get things in writing. Can they give you a guarantee? Always make sure, besides proof of ownership, the person can provide a letter of indebtedness or non-indebtedness, meaning to say that they are not indebted or owing any financial institution for that vehicle. Because you don't want to spend your hard-earned money and buy something that does not belong to you in the end. Oil is the lifeblood of any car. It is a preventative maintenance, an essential preventative maintenance that must be done. How often is it done? It is measured sometimes by mileage, but can we always use mileage? There are different gauges based on manufacturers. Some say 5,000 to 7,000 miles. However, is it mileage alone? And what can happen if you do not change your oil on time? The lifespan of your engine depends on your oil. So the oil is what lubricates the engine. Think about it as the lubrication between the two metals to prevent it from rubbing. So what can potentially go wrong? The car can overheat and some of the parts can become warped because of not changing your oil on time. Naturally, every vehicle releases some transulant vapor from the tailpipe. However, when that vapor looks like smoke, something is wrong. What can be wrong? Maybe there's an oil leak somewhere. So is mileage the only factor to use to change oil? No. The quality of oil, age of the car, and how the car is driven. So oil is supposed to be clean and healthy to optimize your car's performance. But what are some signs that your oil needs to change? Does the vehicle give any symptoms? Yes, it does. In some vehicles, a check engine or an oil change light may illuminate, indicating that you should check your oil. Engine noise, knocking and rumbling. These are some signs to indicate that there is insufficient lubrication to prevent metal-to-metal brushing. Time to call out the grease monkey. Dark, dirty oil is another indicator that clearly your oil needs to be changed. Oil should be amber or translucent in color, but do you actually see dirty oil? It is recommended that you check your oil at least once per month, using the dipstick to check, and you look at the color to see if it's translucent, amber, or looking dark and dirty, indicating that the oil needs to change. Now, another thing, can you just use any oil? I mean, can I use some cooking oil in the engine? No, this is not to be used. Follow your manufacturer's guide as to which oil is recommended for your car. So now we're about to check the engine oil. We're pulling out the dipstick, and you can also check your oil levels. But first you wipe, and then we're putting the dipstick back in, and then we pull again. So clearly, we are within safe levels. So you look from low to high to know if your levels are good. And then you watch the color from here to see if it is translucent, amber in color, or if it's dark and dirty. Clearly, this oil does not need to change. Thankfully though. Tire pressure is very important for driving safety. So much so that an underinflated tire can cause your tire to blow out. But how do you know if your tire is underinflated or leaking? Sometimes we can see a smoothness on the inside or on the outside. This is because the tire is underinflated, meaning to say that this part is getting more contact with the road. If the center of the tire looks more worn, that means it's overinflated. So checking tire pressure, which is measured in PCI, is imperative. Do you even understand the difference between tire and tire? You're wondering, what am I speaking about? Well, T-I-R-E and T-Y-R-E. T-I-R-E referring to tire as well, but that's American. So it can be the verb meaning wear out or sleepy, and it can also be the noun meaning the rubber covering. So tire, T-I-R-E, is the American use of this word. However, in the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago, we use T-Y-R-E. That is the British English for tire. How often do you change your tire or even check your tires? It is recommended to check your tire at least every 2 weeks, and some may say a minimum of a month's time. What else can happen? When a tire is underinflated, it can reduce fuel efficiency. How so? It takes more energy for the vehicle to move. Think about a bicycle with a soft tire. Take a lot more energy when you're riding, yes? Same applies, so when a tire is underinflated in a motor vehicle, it will reduce the fuel efficiency. How about overinflated tires? Overinflated tires, they wear unevenly, which could affect what? The braking ability of the car. So you're the average used car buyer trying to buy a used car without headaches. What are the things that you should look for? There are some signs and symptoms. Use your senses, your sense of sight, hearing, even smell. Let's look at exhaust smoke. So what exactly is exhaust smoke? Exhaust smoke is one symptom that a vehicle will use. It's like old school mechanics. You look at the smoke in terms of the varying colors, and they can tell exactly what is wrong with the car. So the smoke may be white, it may be blue, or it may be black. So what is exactly is white exhaust smoke? If the vehicle is not cold and is hot, and you're still seeing that cloudy, pillowy, thick-looking white smoke, what could that mean? It could mean that maybe you have a leaking coolant. So your engine may be burning too much coolant. You could have a damaged cylinder head gasket problems. So all of this could be signs of something wrong with your car. And even if it's a diesel, bad news, look for a mechanic, meaning that the injector is either worn out or needs changing. A next common problem is black smoke. Black smoke is prevalent. If you have a diesel vehicle, or old used diesel vehicle, you'll know about that black smoke. But what could it be? Maybe it could be too much what? Too much fuel going to the injectors. Or if it's not that, what else could it be? Not enough air getting into the fuel. Or just probably the bad quality diesel that we have. So these are all some problems. And if you're seeing the bluish looking smoke, that could be what? Your vehicle is burning oil. Check your mechanic. Let's go in closer and see what's happening with these used vehicles. Remember I told you need to go to a mechanic, so we are here at the mechanic shop. I am no engine doctor, but I have a little bit of knowledge about cars. I mean, I grew up in cars. You're going to buy a used car. What you should look forward to? We're looking for the exhaust smoke first. So you see the different colors. You know, like a human, you're sick, you display symptoms. Like the car, when it's sick, it displays symptoms. So the smoke is like some of the symptoms, yes?
Correct.
So you're seeing the white, sometimes you see the white, fluffy, pillowy smoke and looking kind of like a little tinge of blue. What does that mean for a person watching a car warm, not a cold car, but a car warm? They went for a test drive and they're seeing that color. What does it mean?
That could be symptomatic of a vehicle that is burning or consuming engine oil, right? Which could be indicative of either valve seals or worn-out rings, or it could just be that the vehicle, due to the age itself, could be a high mileage vehicle that has a lot of worn parts in it, right? So that is symptomatic of the white smoke. Black smoke, it could either be poor quality diesel, such as what we get down here. You know that we import our diesel now with a high sulfur content.
Yes.
It could also be symptomatic, as we say, of air-fuel ratio being off, where you have probably too much fuel or too little bit of air so that you don't get complete combustion in the engine. Those are some of the things that you can look for in a used vehicle. that could be indicative of something that is defective.
Right, and some people will go, like when they're buying a used car, they carry the car for a test run, they come back. You know, some of them, you wash the car, you ain't seeing a sign of nothing, everything on the car looking good.
Right.
Carry it for a long test run and come back and do your check. Pass your hand on the bumper, and sometimes you see some black residue
Soot.
on your hands.
Yeah, that's soot.
Indicating that something is wrong. There's
That's
an
right.
oil leak somewhere.
That's an oil leak, or it could be incomplete combustion, as we said before. Incomplete combustion will give you soot, which will come onto the bumper in the back through the exhaust system.
And secondly, you should look for leaks. Very common. Look at the engine block or even in the engine pan. So again, we say carry it for a run because they might clean the engine and everything looks good. And you can look under the bonnet as well and see if you're seeing any liquid, any signs of any leaking, any splashing there, and see where it is coming from to see where you have to look in the engine itself. Let's go closer. But in your expertise, when you're talking about leaks, what exactly are you looking for?
So you're looking at all the external areas, such as, well, as we mentioned before, the sampan area. We're looking for all your seals that might be on the external environment of the engine, such as your VVL solenoids, your camshaft seals, your tappet cover seals, your injector seals. Those things will exhibit signs and symptoms of a leaking engine, right? And it will also show oil on the engine, even though the engine has been washed previously. So let's make sure that the engine or the vehicle is run for probably at least half an hour or more to make sure that any leaks that might have existed could manifest itself.
Another thing, when you open the oils, the seal for the oil, and you check and sometimes you look at the color of the oil inside there, or you see some gummy residue inside the oil, what does that say to the person who is purchasing a used car?
All right, so that says that the previous owner has not maintained the vehicle
As they should.
as they should, right? It had poor maintenance. So, or it could be indicative of sometimes some people tell themselves they're running a synthetic oil and they run past probably 15, 20,000 Ks and the oil starts to turn to gum.
But what about those people who know, they know there are a lot of fraudsters out there. They're selling you a used car. They go on and they top up with nice, clean oil to the top. How can a person purchasing a car detect whether there's a problem there?
All right, well, a simple method is you can pull the hood in the car and you go to the oil cap itself, right, which is on top of the engine here, and you take it off and you look at it. And if you look at it and you also look down inside it, it's supposed to be clean and nice. If you see there's a lot of residue or build-up around the cap area, or even down inside it, that is indicative of a poorly maintained engine.
Remember, I told you as a lay person, you look for certain sounds. So we are appealing to all the senses. Now you reach the hearing. You hear certain things in this car, you know automatically certain things are wrong. So you hear the roaring, the screaming, the screeching, the squealing. All these are different sounds that could attribute to some cause. Let's go to the squealing. Every time you mash brakes and you hear a squealing sound, you know immediately that something is wrong with the brake pad.
Correct.
Or you hear a deeper screeching,
Grating sound.
Yes, you know is the brake pad, metal to metal rubbing.
Right.
So immediately we detecting certain sounds. Yes?
Yes.
So if it is now in the engine itself, you're hearing a rumbling, or like almost as though the engine wants to cough, like the engine have COVID.
Right.
What is that?
That could be indicative of a number of things. It could be a bad engine mount. It could be bad bushings. It could be a bad shock that causing vibration or excessive vibration on the engine. With regards to the brakes, the screeching and the squealing sounds could be coming from a low brakes pad where you have the wear sensor actually touching, right? If the sensor is actually grated down to a point where it can't go anymore, you'll actually start to cut into the rotor and that will actually give you a grinding sound.
And something
Right.
you hear sound like a cat with the serpentine belt when there's a worn serpentine belt.
Yes, the belt could be stretched, it could be worn, right? You could have water on the belt, you could have oil on the belt.
But
right?
there's a few tests that people can do. I know some of them may see them with the water bottle, spray
Right.
bottle, and they may spray the belt.
Right.
And when they spray the belt and you stop hearing the song, immediately you know that is the problem.
Correct, that's right. The belt could be dry, right? So there are actually products that you could buy to actually condition the belt, but if that doesn't work, you need to just go ahead and change it.
And what about maybe nothing is wrong with the belt? What about if the tension is too much tension, or maybe it is too slack as well?
Tension, yeah, all those will cause the problems that we are talking about. Too little tension, too much tension could cause screeching, squealing, and it could cause an abnormal noise in the engine area.
But if that is the problem, so let us say a person who knows nothing about car, And that is the problem. That's an inexpensive problem to fix.
Yes,
because
it
on
is.
average, a serpentine belt is about $50, $45.
Yeah, $50 to $100.
So it's an inexpensive problem that we could. There are good problems and bad problems. Let us go into some of the bad problems. What are some of the bad problems that you're looking for in a used vehicle?
All right, bad problems in a used vehicle. Well, first of all, when you pull your engine bay, you would look to see if the vehicle has been in an accident.
Right. So we go into the frame.
Yes, you could actually look at the frame of the vehicles. You can see if there has been any welding or stitching on the frame of the vehicle. Just by looking at the spaces between the bumper and the lights, you can tell if the vehicle has been in an accident.
People who don't understand this, because there are some people watching you and probably saying, what are you talking about? This is, what kind of language is this? This is Arabic? No. If the vehicle was in an accident, sometimes despite the best body job, despite the best physical doctor that it went by, you will see certain signs.
That's right.
So you look for your bumper space, and remember I tell you, appeal to all your senses. We leave the sense of hearing and we go to the sense of sight. So if you're coming a little closer, you will see behind this vehicle, you will see the space in between the bumper. It's a little wider than it's supposed to be. And then there's the sense of smell, burning oil, fuel leak. What are they? What smell? What sense are they looking for? No, it is not a Victoria's Secret scent at all.
No, it isn't. Right? So some of the scents that you're looking for the common person, the layman, right? Everybody know what gasoline smells like, right? So a rotted hose or a deteriorated hose could be leaking and causing gas to fall on the ground or probably spray inside the engine bay. You mightn't see it, but you're going to smell it because gas vaporizes as it hits the surface.
Quite true.
Right? Burning oil. Everybody knows what burning oil smells like. Right? Together with the fact that you might actually see the oil burning. Right? Coolant leaking. Right? You might actually smell coolant leaking if you know what it smells like. It has a distinct smell if coolant leaks and falls onto either your exhaust system or a hot area in the engine.
But talking about the coolant, you know, it's always advised that you should check your coolant at least once a month.
Correct.
If you're going on a long journey, check the coolant. I mean, it's inexpensive, but why is it so much overlooked?
It's overlooked probably because people are not educated enough to know that low coolant level in an engine could probably damage the engine, and if it's an expensive
and it can cause the engine to overheat as well.
It will overheat and you can damage the engine, right? If it's a vehicle where you could probably pick up an engine in the bamboo head and block, you know, I mean, you mightn't be too concerned. But if it's a vehicle that you might have to import an engine that might cost you in excess of probably $30,000, $40,000, you might be more concerned. So, you know, so you probably need to, as a habit, whether it be an expensive vehicle or a non-expensive vehicle, to practice checking your coolant on time. Probably every 2 to 3 days is my advice. One of the ways to tell that a belt is worn out, right, for an experienced person is by actually taking the belt and turning it over and applying some force, and you will see some micro cracks exhibited in the groove of the belt, whereas a new belt shows no signs of cracking.
Okay, just explain to them, it's like an old face and a new face. As your face ages, you see crack and lines and stuff like that, and you know it's worn out because over age. Right. And with this belt, I'm seeing the difference, and this newer belt, you're seeing no cracks.
There are no cracks and there are no damages to the surface or the grooves of the belt itself. As you can see, this belt also, on the edge of the belt is indicative of possibly a bad pulley in this car. That's why the edge is damaged in the belt also.
And then there's the alligator belt with all the grooves in it. This is not the alligator belt.
No, it isn't.
No, so for the alligator belt, because it has so much grooves, you have to look a little closer to see the cracks and the lines.
That's
yes?
right. So you look into the apex of the groove itself, and you will see the same signs that you see here. You will see the cracks in the grooves, but you just need to probably inspect it a little further.
So we're going to witness firsthand the changing of some worn brake pad. And remember I tell you, if you want to know your brake pad are worn, just listen to your car. You will hear the screeching sound. Believe me, it doesn't go out without making noise. And sometimes that screeching sound gets deeper when there's metal to metal combustion. Trying to turn your power steering and realizing that the car groans and whines, almost as though it wakes up from a deep, deep slumber. What is that? There's some friction. And sometimes the steering could feel very stiff and unresponsive. My recommendation, check your power steering fluid. It could be that there's maybe a leak or that there's oil in your fluid. Have it checked out. Because if you don't check it out, you could eventually lose power. It is very slow, but you could eventually lose power and you lose control over your whole vehicle. And that could be a catastrophe.